Welcome back to the Director's Garage 8 is Enough Shootout. Now, I am your host and resident idiot, Michael, and today we're going to continue the shootout with a look at sound structure. Now, let's get right into the live action. Okay, we've had a lot of technical assessment, but how does all of that translate into sound? Well, it's time to check out the sound structure of these Uber cans. Yeah, we're talking bass, mids, and treble. And yeah, just for this episode, we're gonna do it in that order. What are you gonna do about it, huh? Okay, and we're starting with the bass, and it's the Abyss off the top. This sub is so well represented. It moves you from the moment you hit play, and what that deep, soulful bass translates to is emotion. The Abyss is the best headphone for translating music into emotion. You feel more when you're listening to the Abyss. Now, next up, in a very, very close second, is the LCD-4. Yeah, I was shocked that headphone, with its long legs, dug so deep. And if you like the sub on the Abyss, the LCD-4's is even better. Now, these two headphones really lead the field. Third for me is going to be a surprise, and it's the Carbon. Yes, the electrostatic Carbon. It's not overwhelming bass, but it's got the best texture in the bass of any of these headphones, probably due to the speed. But there is a caveat, and I've mentioned this before. You absolutely must crank the volume to get that bass to activate. I'm talking about near dangerous levels of volume, but it's intoxicating. This headphone gets better and better the louder you play them. And they get better the longer they're in use, too. Might be an amp thing, but it could be headphone related too. I don't really know. But no matter what level I start at with the Carbon, by the end of the session, I'm usually at or near the top of the volume range. And I leave each session with ringing ears. Now, fourth place for me is the Elite. For quantity, this thing's at the top of the shootout, but it lacks some of the texture of those top three. But if you want a great headphone with an ample bottom, well, the Renaro Driver in the Elite is the one to get. It's got booty, it's got junk in the trunk, and it will not disappoint. It's just lacks some of the texture and the speed of the others. But the real benefit is you can get all the bass you want out of the Renaro with virtually any source at any volume. It's one of the reasons the Elite remains one of my very favorite headphones. Now, the LCD-5 comes in with terrific bass texture, but unfortunately, the quantity is really lacking. I wish the LCD-5 produced the bass of the LCD-4. It would shoot way up to the top of the ranks if it did. It might even win the category. The Susvara comes in sixth. Now, it's not a bass head headphone, but it's more kind of neutral and plenty fast, but they just don't kind of thump with the others in this field. The Atrium, to me, though, is kind of a wild card. I love the mid and upper bass. It ranks very high in this group, but it does lack that sub, which sends it more to the bottom because the other four are so strong, and they aren't as fast as the LCD-5 or the Susvara. Now, the Focal has kind of the weakest bass in this roundup, at least to my ears. Now, it's still represented down low, but as far as preference, if I'm looking for something that impresses me down low, the Utopia just isn't the headphone I'm going to reach for. So let's check out the bass rankings. Now, things get much tougher to assess from here. The mids and the treble present such nuance between headphones. I'm never really sure I have these rankings completely perfect. I certainly spent the most time on these next two categories. So let's talk about those mids, and I'm going to lead with the Carbon. Because of vocals, and vocals. They're open, pure, natural. The Carbon does the best job to my ears at rendering the human voice. Guitars are spectacular. Piano is divine. It's a headphone that's made for Diana Krall. Okay, it's an intimate experience. Female vocals are slightly better than the male, unless you're running a little more volume. Then the boys kind of get more in line. Now, in second, I'm really going to shock you here because I'm calling it for the Meze Elite. Now, the Elite has most of the Carbon's presentation, but without some of the speed. Now, vocals are extremely intimate. You connect instantly to a quality vocal. Both male and female vocals are heavy on the emotion. They're perfectly tuned. There's nothing peaky. There's no honk. It's a direct connection to the singer and what they are feeling as they render a performance. It's just spectacular. The Elite is a little less impressive on instruments through the mid. There are other headphones that I prefer for a pure acoustic guitar or a piano, but put on some Grateful Dead and enjoy the harmony. Almost any genre works on the Elite, and again, you can drive them with anything. Top grade. The Susvara has a less intimate vocal. Vocals kind of float more. They're not as forward. You don't get quite the emotion that you get, say, out of the Elite. But the Susvara does deliver detail that the Elite wishes it could deliver. At higher volumes, they kind of do more of the Carbon effect, but you can back the volume down and still get a luscious vocal, which you can't do on the Carbon. Now, despite being the most power-demanding headphone, amped correctly, these feel effortless in their approach. It's kind of funny. You have to jump through all these hoops to get something that's soft and beautiful. But there it is, a gorgeous, perfect mid, when you have a ton of power pushing an impossibly thin membrane at insanely fast speed. Male vocals, female vocals, there's a great case for these having the best mid in the pack. The one thing I'd mention, and it's something that's bothering me more and more as time goes by, there's a thinness to the sound of the upper mids and lower trebles that is a signature of Hifiman. You love it or you hate it, and I'm growing colder on that quality. I like the emotional punch of the Carbon and the Elite just a little bit more. Now, the Abyss has a recessed mid and delivers a gorgeous vocal, but the trick with the Abyss is the way the vocals sort of drift in. They kind of waft. The mids float on the 1266 DC. They're tuned to perfection. It's not the intimacy, though, of some of the other headphones, but it's all about presentation here. You have a tremendous sense of space, and someone like Macy Gray and her stripped LP, she's distant, yet the quality of her vocals, the timbre, is still spot on. It's just a spectacle, and there's a wow factor here that just can't be ignored. Of everything the Focal does, I'd say its best attribute is vocals. The shape of the mid is really impressive. Now, they do go bright as you go up the mids, and that keeps them out of the top tier here, but the mid-range is terrific on the Focal. If you want great vocals, the Focal impresses. The LCD-4 can get a touch peaky at volume. The mids go a little edgy on female vocals, and on male vocals, I think these things fare a lot better. Now, it handles instruments through the mids maybe better than any other headphone, but female vocals, it pushes a little too far forward. But put on some Sinatra and you're golden. I swear to God. Check out Fly Me to the Moon on this headphone. It's an experience. So these rank a bit lower here, though there are situations where it's near the top of this field. There is a slight fall off in the upper mid-lower treble range. This keeps the LCD-4, I think, from ever getting shouty. The Atrium is kind of the curious entry here. The mids are a little bunched up. They're fast enough, but there's a force behind the vocals. They sound thick. You know how I said the Susvara is thin in the upper mid? Well, this headphone presents the opposite. It's thick, but it's thick in every frequency range. This works with some of the more aggressive genres better, but I wouldn't go to the Atrium for a pure jazz vocal. There's a coloration that keeps it from their top tier in this field. Keep in mind, this doesn't mean the Atrium has a bad mid. This is in comparison to other headphones in the shootout. It's playing against headphones that cost 3 times as much. The LCD-5 is harder to assess. I can't point to anything wrong with the mids on the LCD-5. They just don't necessarily impress in any particular area either. They sound accurate, which is to say a little on the boring side. The mid is closest to the Focal if I had to compare it to something, but it's not as intimate as, say, the Elite. The Elite gives you the feeling that you're tapping into the singer's soul. The vocals are more dry on the LCD-5. Yet, I can't say I don't like the mids. They just don't stand out in any particular way either. I think it does female vocals better because remember the LCD-5 lacks a little bit of bass, and the baritone in the chest of the male singers doesn't present itself as full. So let's take a look at the results of the mid-range. And that means it's time for treble. And I'm going to lead the treble with the Susvara, and there's a clarity here and a sparkle that's just intoxicating. They never shout or splash. The Susvara is so fast. The trumpet on the Susvara is about as pure as it gets. They're consistent across any genre. I used Hank Mobley's Patent Chat as a demo. The trumpet, the sax, just crank it up, play it soft. The treble is just perfect at any volume. Second is the LCD-4. They're right in lockstep with the Susvara in treble. Snares, cymbals, trumpets, just remarkable. The LCD-5 gives a similar experience with just a touch of darkness that adds some realism to the experience. They shave, it seems, a little of the edge off the top, and the LCD-5 adds kind of a neutrality, but it still delivers a remarkable treble. And these top headphones are all remarkably precise. The Abyss checks in fourth on this list. There are tracks that send the Abyss into orbit. The wrong track or recording can push the Abyss over the top. They have the best sparkle up top, but a bright track can fatigue a little. But the best recordings make this the best treble experience. I think there are dynamics at play on the Abyss that make it tougher to nail down. The Abyss has the best punch and impact. On the wrong track, that impact can be too much, but on the right track, the treble is ethereal. So I can't put it in the best in this list, but there are times that the Abyss has the best treble. Does that make sense? The Elite's treble is similar to the LCD-5. There's a little shaved off the top that keeps these things safe from ever getting shouty or metallic. It's a safer treble approach that seeks to find the best balance, and these probably are the best tuned headphone in the entire shootout, but they don't sparkle with the top of this pack. The Atrium delivers a remarkably similar experience to the Elite. These are a darker headphone though, and the treble isn't emphasized at all. There's something though really delightful about the Atrium up top. The treble doesn't sparkle with the top of the tier, but there's almost, again, this weight, this force behind the treble that brings a smile to my face when I use these. They play it a little safe up top, and on bright tracks, the tame treble makes these a perfect headphone. The Carbon is similar to the Susvara in presentation, definitely high on the sparkle and openness, but these are treble emphasized headphones at lower volumes. And again, you have to crank the volume for the best presentation. Its volume is maximus, and that is fatiguing for certain. It's like Icarus. You fly really close to the sun, and you're engaging in an emotional thrill, but you're left with the burns for your travels. Now, the Focal is at the bottom of the treble. These things just go a little too bright. The horns ring out with too much presence for my taste. I do appreciate the speed of the Focal. They're just too treble emphasized for me. So let's take a look at the treble results. So this is the end of part 2 of the 8 is Enough shootout, and in just a couple of days I'll be back with part 3, the results. And I'll tell you which will stay and which will go. Kind of like the Clash. Did you get that one? Okay. But seriously, this has been an epic undertaking, and I had no idea I'd be doing an hour-long video as a result of the hours and hours spent listening to these 8 headphones. Okay, I'm going to be back shortly, just 2 days, and it's gonna be a spicy finish. Thanks for watching.